Overwatch 2, since its inception, this game has failed to justify its sequel status. It's failed to justify the number 2 in its title because it's basically Overwatch 1, but with what many would argue is a worse monetization model and some changes that could have been delivered as an update to Overwatch 1 rather than promoting this as a full-fledged sequel. The thing that was going to justify Overwatch 2 as a sequel was this brand new PVE mode that essentially were separated by two categories. There was the hero missions, which had you partake in a bunch of missions while also essentially having skill trees that allowed you to modify each hero's gameplay, which sounded really exciting, and it was the thing that people were most looking forward to. And then there is the story missions, which would essentially see Overwatch gameplay be turned into a campaign-like experience where you'd get cutscenes and set pieces and just narrative elements. And this would comprise the justification for the 2 in Overwatch 2. Now, recall that back in May of 2023, Blizzard scrapped hero missions altogether because they realized that this was just a vision that they could not deliver on. They got too ambitious with it, and as they kept developing the game, they realized that they just couldn't make the development of this mode work without compromising on the main component of Overwatch, which is the PvP. Now, with that, they did clarify that while they did make the decision to cut hero mode plus talents, we have a lot of great PvE content coming this year in the form of big story missions, new cinematics, co-op events, and single-player hero mastery missions. So the hero missions was essentially the portion of the PvE aspect that they retained, and that was something that we did eventually see launch, though there was controversy surrounding that because Blizzard decided to charge $15 for the first batch of story missions, which comprised of a few missions that weren't all that long. And while many did say that it was fun in its own right, many argued that it definitely wasn't worth $15. Its longevity came into question. The missions weren't that long, and the gameplay didn't offer anything all that new and compelling, though the cutscenes were nice and the set pieces were cool, and it definitely offers some neat narrative elements that Overwatch fans were looking forward to. But $15 per batch of missions was just something that Overwatch 2 could not sell to audiences because the game was already heavily monetized and people were not pleased with its monetization model and the way heroes were locked behind a battle pass. And many were waiting for this thing that they were hoping would be free, essentially free content, since the cosmetics were supposed to pay for the development of the game and were supposed to be the main driver of monetization, and all of the gameplay affecting stuff that was supposed to be free. All of the content was supposed to be free. That didn't turn out to be the case, and so the end result was that seemingly the Overwatch 2 story missions, as far as sales go, didn't do particularly well, and that has also led to the complete scrapping of the story missions. I cannot just fathom the level of mismanagement surrounding this game. So this is a report from Jason Schreier published on March 22nd, 2024 via news outlet Bloomberg. The headline here reads, Blizzard makes big changes as Overwatch 2 struggles. Now, one of the things that Jason Schreier emphasizes in this article is this bonus structure that Blizzard has in place. And this is relevant to today's topic of Overwatch 2's financial struggles and the decision to stop making PvE story missions. I'll get to that in a bit. But as far as this bonus structure is concerned with Blizzard, it's one where essentially based on a game's performance, the people who worked on that game will receive bonuses twice a year. It used to be that the performance of the company was company-wide. It was how the entire company performed, and everyone would get bonuses based on that. But since 2023, Bobby Kotick changed it so that that's separated by game. So if Overwatch 2 doesn't do well, but Diablo does really well, then the Diablo team gets a bonus, but the Overwatch team does not, which is not a good idea. And executives within Blizzard try to fight Activision executives against that. So folks like Mike Morhaime and J. Allen Brack fought for bonuses to be shared company-wide because they believe that otherwise everyone would want to work on the most successful games rather than experiment with new ideas, and that would just generally cause internal strife and division. But of course, former Chief Executive Officer or CEO Bobby Kotick argued that those behind the most lucrative products should be rewarded the most because he was basically seeking to reward those who made the company the most money. This bonus structure is basically every team for itself, and every team now individually has to focus on profits. They cannot experiment with ideas because there might be a risk that that won't generate profits, and there's no safety net that was there when it was a company-wide thing where other consistently performing IPs and franchises and games could make up for some of the potential risks of experimenting with ideas. And so that leads to every individual team now having to solely dedicate to what makes the most money instead of what is the most fun thing we can make right now. The reason this is brought up is because Overwatch 2 is not performing particularly well, and the bonus that the employees received or the lack thereof further highlights just how poorly this game is performing. So right here, it is detailed that Overwatch 2 received a paid pack of 3 PVE story missions that sold poorly. This is not information that Blizzard or Activision have relayed. This is something that Jason Schreier got from people, from sources who are familiar with the business, who relayed this information to Jason Schreier. Now we know that the PvE story missions, financially speaking, commercially speaking, did not do well at all. Now, Overwatch 2 already struggled back in 2023 financially, so much so that the development team behind Overwatch, with Bobby Kotick's new implemented bonus structure, wasn't supposed to receive any bonus, but the company would cover some of their bonuses to make up for the shortfall. But this year in 2024, earlier this month, earlier in March of 2024, Blizzard informed developers that Overwatch 2 performed so poorly financially that they would receive a stunning 0% of their bonus targets, and the company this time wouldn't do anything to cover for the shortfalls. This is a big deal because it is rare in Blizzard's history for profit-sharing bonuses to not be distributed, and the reason that this has happened this particular time with Overwatch 2 is because of the new bonus structure that Bobby Kotick implemented. Other teams like the World of Warcraft team or the Diablo team, those are games that are faring financially better, so they're receiving bonuses, but the Overwatch team will get 0%, which is just a really crappy situation, but also, again, really highlights that this game has not been making money for Activision Blizzard, as interest surrounding this game and the spending surrounding this game sort of fades away. And on top of that, the PvE story missions sold so poorly that they full-on decided to just nuke the whole thing. The majority of the team behind Overwatch 2's PvE was laid off. They killed the team behind the PvE portion of Overwatch 2, or the story missions. And this was part of the mass layoffs that happened back in January as part of a company-wide reduction in its workforce. And furthermore, the company straight up will not be finishing any of the remaining planned PvE content. They'll instead double down on competitive PvP gameplay. So for those who did invest $15 into the game to get those 3 story missions in the hopes of getting more, for those who did enjoy that experience, guess what? You spend $15 on essentially content that will never be completed. This is after the fact that you were marketed PvE, hero missions, and all these things, something really comprehensive, and were not delivered on that. And we're told that we will definitely deliver on story missions. Already, that was a huge reduction in scope from what was originally promised, and that was announced after people spent money on the game, after the game launched. And now, the story missions, the remaining bit of the PvE, the surviving bit, that has been killed off as well. Now, Bloomberg did get a statement from Blizzard through spokesperson Andrew Reynolds, and this is what he had to say. Decisions like these are in service to our community and based on feedback, which is also good for our business and the future of the game. I guarantee you nobody gave Blizzard the feedback of, we don't want PvE, we don't want you to finish what you started, what you told us we were going to get. This is just them essentially trying to cut back on cost and trying to offset elements that are not making anywhere near as much money as they had hoped. This is not in service of their community. This is them doing damage control for just the utter fuck up that the PvE aspect of this game and the development surrounding it and the mismanagement surrounding it ended up being. That's what this is. The PvE story missions are likely not worth the investment from a business perspective because it takes a lot to develop those, and the returns are just not there, especially because of how poorly the $15 pack that paywalled the story missions sold. And if they release that stuff for free, that might boost players, but will it boost the player base enough that it'll drive enough monetization to make up for the cost of the PvE story missions? And keep in mind that because of Bobby Kotick's new implemented bonus structure where it's every team for itself, they cannot take the risk of continuing doing story missions, because if another flop like this happens again, that means that's another period where the developers behind Overwatch don't get bonuses. And so that's another factor that Blizzard's leadership has to consider when it comes to how to move forward with Overwatch 2. They can simply not take as many creative risks because of what Bobby Kotick implemented there. Whatever the case, this is a mismanaged situation. At the end of the day, it doesn't change the fact that customers were promised PvE content, substantial PvE content, to make Overwatch 2 a worthy sequel. That is no longer a thing, like, at all. Now, according to Jason Schreier's report, there's optimism among some members of the Overwatch 2 team that this refocus on PvP will lead to a turnaround, though it was argued here that Blizzard will have to ensure that they don't lose key staff as a result of the low morale from the missing bonuses due to Overwatch 2's financial failure. We'll see how that goes, but you know, even if the PvP and the focus on it does end up making the PvP aspect better in the long term, the mismarketing surrounding Overwatch 2, the promises that have been broken, that stuff will always be remembered, and that will always be a shadow that will loom over this entire fiasco, this whole mismanaged release and sequel that should never have been. Now, keep in mind that the whole PvE story missions being killed hasn't been officially announced yet. This was an investigative report from Jason Schreier. PC Gamer also reported on this and corroborated Bloomberg's report, information that PC Gamer also corroborated separately. So once you get multiple corroborations and you get this report from someone like Jason Schreier, you can expect it to be true. Now, one thing that Blizzard is pulling back on to try to incentivize people to go back to Overwatch 2's PvP mode is that they're going to stop locking new heroes behind a battle pass with Season 10. Which is good news, I guess, but I would also say too little too late, and this is how it should have been from the outset. One of the unfortunate results of Overwatch 2 having gone free to play and having to monetize more aggressively through Battle Pass and locking certain things behind it, and it's all just been kind of a bit of a disaster. The core gameplay of Overwatch is still fun, but it's just the handling of the progression and rewards and gameplay loop and all of these promises that they couldn't keep, and the mismanagement of the development of promised modes and features that people were so excited for and looking forward to that would have justified the 2 in Overwatch 2. All of that does make this just one of the most disastrous AAA game live service situations, I think. And we'll see if Overwatch 2 can recover from this. But right now, based on its financial performance and based on the negative press surrounding it, it's going to be a very tough uphill battle. Only time will tell. In the meantime, though, this is kind of where we're at with Overwatch 2. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on this whole Overwatch 2 situation. Do you think it's a big deal that they've scrapped story missions altogether and have completely just eliminated what little remnant there was of the original vision of the PvE, which was supposed to be hero missions and story missions and more? Or do you think this is the right move, and are you glad that they're going to shift their focus more towards PvP and make that their primary kind of focus? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.